Hey guys, Sam here at NA Studios. Today I'm going to look at mastering in Logic Pro X. Now I'm not going to look at your standard kind of dynamics and tonal processing. I want to look a bit beyond that at some of the tools that Logic has in its arsenal that you might not have seen before. Make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit like, and let's check it out. Alright, so first off, this is a master that I've done recently of Ray Fennick. This is his new EP that's coming out. Check it out, it's absolutely fantastic. So the first thing I want to look at is this AU Round Trip AAC plugin. Now this is one that I've never really looked at until a couple of years ago, and it's a really interesting one. So the way we get to it is we go to Audio Units, and then Apple. So this is all the Apple built-in stuff that I always thought was a bit kind of naff. It was just really simple stuff, but it turns out this is fantastic. AU Round Trip AAC. And what this does is it's going to allow us to hear how our encoded media will sound once we submit it to Spotify or whatever it is. So we can check it here. We can see a custom setting. Let's see what it's going to sound like once it's gone to AAC. We can hear the difference between our original and the 320 MP3, for example. So let's have a listen to, let's do a listening test. So what we can do here is we can check our ears. We can say, right, I want to listen to the original, and then I want to listen to the 320 MP3 next to each other, and in a bit of a blind test, see if I'm actually able to spot which one's the real one. It's harder than you think. Let's go into training mode and let's play it. So one of these, A or B, is the source. I think the top end sounds a bit crisper on that one. Oh no! Let's go again. Here's the source. Oh, what? Finally. It's harder than you think with 320 MP3s. Let's take it to something that's kind of, let's end that test. Let's take it to something that's really easy to hear. Let's take it to something crazy like 32. So this is 32 kilobits per second. We're easily going to be able to hear the difference here. So I'm pretty certain that's the original. Once again. It's going to be B. Etc. But then you can end the test and you can check out how many you got correct. It's a really interesting kind of ear test and checking whether what you're hearing is what you think you're hearing. Because at 320 MP3, as I've just shown you, it is kind of difficult to hear sometimes. That bit in the top end is not as different as you might think it is. Okay, the second thing I want to show you is region-based processing. So programs like Samplitude, like Mastering DAWs, they've had this for a long while. Logic brought it in a couple of versions ago, maybe in 10, but kind of a point increment. And what we can do is we can right-click and go Selection-Based Processing. It's in the processing menu. And we can add the processing to the region non-destructively. So we can bypass all our plugins on the inserts, and we can listen to our mastering chain and then compare it to a second mastering chain just to see which one is going to be the best. So on this one, I've got everything the same except the EQs. I've just kind of changed quite drastically. One's got a massive mid boost. Now, one thing that kind of catches me out quite a lot is I press play or spacebar to start normally. You can't do that with this. You have to press the kind of audition button. So let's do that. Let's listen to chain A and then chain B. Chain A first. Okay, and you can make it even more extreme, just, you know, whatever you want to do to kind of check between the two of them. Okay, because sometimes it's easy for you to fool your ears in thinking, well, I've done all this processing, so it must be better. And then if you're then bypassing stuff and there's level discrepancies, you know, it's just a very simple way to A/B plugins to make sure that what you're doing is the best for the source material. And if you're umming and ahhing between compression ratios or attack and release settings between two settings that you think both work, then you can easily swap between the two of them without pressing too many buttons, just clicking A or going to B. And I think that's a really helpful thing to be able to do. The third thing is match EQ. Now, this is something that people kind of sniff at a little bit. They think, well, you know, it's not something we really want to use. We can EQ properly ourselves as mastering engineers. That's very true. But it's something that you don't have to take as gospel. You can just take it as a kind of general idea. I'll show you what I mean. So let's go to match EQ. Let's pop it up the top here. EQ, and let's go to match EQ. Now, when we're mastering, we're hoping to achieve that kind of tonal correction that makes the whole release sound like one project. In this particular instance, all 5 tracks were recorded at a completely different time, in different years, on different setups, so it's important that we wanted to get that continuity. So Match EQ is a very powerful tool. We've got our current track, so in that one we drag our track that we're working on at the moment, then a reference track, another song in the same project that we want it to sound like, and then it will display the EQ curve of it. I'll show you what that means now. So let's take Tam Tam, that's the current track, let's drag it onto there. And it's going to take a minute or two just to analyse that. You can snip up just a certain section of it. If you think that one certain section has got a really good bottom end or a really good top end, you can just snip that bit out and it won't process the entire audio file. It will just process that one piece for you, which is handy. Okay, so it's analysed Tam Tam for me. What I'm going to do now is drag in another one from the session onto the reference section. Now again, you can do this with just a small snippet, but for now I'm just going to take the entire file just because it's easier. Okay, so now we've got the second track in there, Firepower 44, and we can see there are some differences there. Now, if we click the EQ curve and click Match, there we go. What it's done is it has matched the EQ curve of this one to the EQ curve of this one, but that's not all we want to do. If we were to do that, then we would get quite a strange result. It's not necessarily the case that you want to match it completely, because the way that it analyses it is over the entirety of the whole track, which is not quite as reliable as we may think. But this setting over here, the apply setting, is very, very powerful because it means that we can just notch that down and we can make it just only 20%. And we can just make it so it's a little bit more reminiscent of the original. So let's have a listen to that now. This is Tam Tam with the Match EQ on, up at 100%. Let's just go for. And now let's bypass it. Smoother. Hear how it's adding all that high end. But what we want to do is just bring that down a touch, just so it's kind of just vaguely reminiscent of it. It's just notching out a little bit and adding in a little bit of boost. We don't want to use this as our main EQ, but it can help in a mastering scenario to get you a little bit closer. If you're working to a time scale and you just need to get something mastered quickly, you need to get it out there, then this is kind of a dark and dirty way of kind of match EQing. And then from there, you can make your additional processing on top. You can make your real tonal correction or your dynamics processing, whatever it is you need to do for your master. All right, thanks a lot for checking this out. I hope these 3 have been useful for you. This is not a be-all and end-all mastering tutorial by any stretch of the imagination. This is just 3 useful things that I find in Logic that can kind of get us to that extra level. 3 tools that are in Logic that really help us out and are kind of unique to an extent to this DAW. All right, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit like. Thanks a lot for checking it out. See you next time.